top focus right now continues to be what's happening in Bangladesh. Temples have been burned, businesses have been looted, and citizens have been attacked. With more than 200 attacks on minorities in Bangladesh, what is certain is that religious persecution is on. After the fall of Sheikh Hasina's government and the chaos and the violence that followed, unrest, of course, took over Bangladesh. Hindus, which constitute about 8% of the population in Bangladesh, now fear for their lives in a country what they once fondly called home. Amid escalating tensions with minority groups being attacked in the nation, Hindus have taken to the streets in the UK, US and even in India to protest against the atrocities taking place in Bangladesh. However, what is important for us to realize is that the need of the hour is to condemn what is going on, for us to take cognizance of the crimes that are taking place against innocent people in Bangladesh and demand that strict action be taken against the perpetrators. While ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has now claimed that the United States of America was the key conspirator in planning her ouster from the nation, the White House has responded denying all allegations and has categorically refuted any involvement. Given the fact that the United States is known for its strong stance in favor of human rights, what is truly surprising at this point in time is how the country has not spoken out or condemned what needs to now be called the genocide of Hindus in Bangladesh. Apart from this, what should also be questioned is the proximity of Mohammad Yunus, the new leader of Bangladesh's interim government, with erstwhile US senators, including the Clinton family. The question really lies in the lack of sanctions that are being imposed by the United States and amidst the minorities of Bangladesh being targeted. We have, of course, now seen what really has taken place over the past few days. But what really does this indicate about the United States of America? I take this conversation forward. I have with me Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. We also have with us Madhav Nalapat. We have Major General Gigi Dwivedi, and I have with me Adit Kothari. Let me begin this conversation with Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. Ambassador Kapoor, the United States of America rather silent on what's happening in Bangladesh. It's one of the first countries to always come and speak up against what it perceives to be atrocities against minority groups in certain countries. Why do you think that the United States of America is wanting at this point in time to be rather quiet about the situation in Bangladesh?
It's quite shocking and unacceptable for the US not to raise its voice at this juncture. There have been no statements from the White House, from the State Department, from the National Security Agency, from anywhere on Bangladesh as yet. And we have had a lot of meetings, including one congressional briefing yesterday online with Senator Rich McCormick, where a lot of the leaders of the Hindu community in the US, including those with Bangladeshi backgrounds and with families in Bangladesh, spoke out very strongly and very firmly and demanded that the US take some steps and actions and issue adequate statements so that this lack of response or reaction by the US is addressed at the earliest possible. Let us see if that results in something at all, because something has to be done by the US. Otherwise, I guess it will be easier for the world to say that US is complicit in all that is happening in Bangladesh today. Besides that, the US will have to take a very firm stand on asking for an independent study, commission of inquiry into the atrocities being committed against the Hindus in Bangladesh and not whitewashing them. There have been many stories from apologists and others who say that, oh, these are not really all Hindus, these are not really all communal, they are also targeted against Awami League, they are also targeted against Muslims. But it is shameful. Whatever videos are coming out of Bangladesh is absolutely horrendous and shameful. And whether it is Hindus or if they purport not to be Hindus also, it is still very shameful as to what is being done by the people to their own citizens. So very strict action has to be taken to stop the violence, to stop all the atrocities immediately, temples being burnt, individuals being killed. Besides that, the world and the US has to lead the world in calling for free and fair elections and monitoring those free and fair elections. Now, India has to support that also. So that is another step which has to be taken by the US and the world. The third step would be to take adequate actions against Bangladesh in the Commonwealth. Because on various occasions in the past, whenever there have been, stepping out of line beyond the red lines laid down by Pakistan, they have been suspended from the membership of Commonwealth. So similarly, Bangladesh has to be suspended from the membership of Commonwealth till there are free and fair elections and till a democratic government is back in power. UN also has to be shaken up a little bit. The UN Human Rights Commission, the UN Security Council, they have to get active. They have to start monitoring the situation and they have to start reporting on the situation. So back to you, Devika.
Right. Professor Madhav Nalapad, let me bring you into the conversation as well, sir. As far as the United States of America or the UN is concerned, the US keeps saying that they are currently monitoring the situation and that's the extent of the comments that they've made. Is that truly enough for the United States of America to be completely silent on what is happening on the ground in Bangladesh, for them to not even mention some of the atrocities that are taking place against the minorities of Bangladesh?
Well, I'd like to say that President Biden, National Security Advisor Sullivan, Secretary of State Blinken, and even, I'm sorry to say, Kamala Harris. Now, they seem to have basically adopted the Nixon-Kissinger rulebook. And the Nixon-Kissinger rulebook is turn the other way and basically support the genocide. When they're talking about Muslims also being killed, they forget to mention those Muslims are mostly Shia, moderate Muslims, and Awami League members. I mean, just because they're also Muslim, you can't put in a catch-all basis because you have Muslim extremists who are doing the slaughtering. So please, I can't believe the United States is so badly served by its mission in Dhaka. They have such little information apparently. I mean, actually Nixon was given a huge amount of information, and you have Archer Blood and all that, and he got very upset, and I think, he sent a telegram. But yeah, it seems to me that the Bangladesh US Embassy is doing nothing. And I'd like to point out that that is a disgrace. The United States, frankly, as Nixon and Kissinger were complicit, Mao Zedong was complicit, and today, let's be honest, President Biden, Jake Sullivan, and of course, the great leader, the beloved leader, General Secretary Xi of the CCP, they're all complicit and complete silence. I mean, the kind of language that's being used is so muffled. And look at the contrast with India. You are talking of imaginary stories about mass killing of minorities, mass burning of mosques. These are all imaginary. You go anywhere across the country, you will see it's not happening. You go anywhere across Bangladesh, you will see all this happening. And whom do they basically keep talking about? ICHHRF and all those two organizations. Oh, India. They don't mention Bangladesh at all. I mean, this is a real disgrace, and frankly, it is a stain on the United States. Now, having said that, I also want to point out, Devika, Wall Street Journal, BBC, CNN, The Guardian. I mean, where are they? They're not basically bringing out the facts at all. Instead, they are filled with imaginary stories about fake videos of genocide in India. and real videos of genocide in Bangladesh, they are completely ignoring. This is unpardonable, and if I may say so, almost criminal. And the Western press has frankly lost the respect of the real international community, not just the Atlanticist world, but the whole world. But it is frankly taken very unseriously. And now, we have got one more example of exactly why the Western world is regarded with such contempt by so many hundreds of billions of people all across the international community. Devika.
Right, absolutely. I want to bring in Major General Gigi Dwivedi as well into the conversation. Major General Gigi Dwivedi, do you feel that somewhere then the links of Mohammed Yunus with the Clinton family and with the grants that he's been given through families, elite families of the United States of America, all of that then also needs to be looked into? Sheikh Hasina is ousted. She says that the US was involved in the ouster, and suddenly you see that a man who has close relations with the political class of the United States of America is chosen to become the leader of the interim government. And amidst all of that, the US continues to be oddly silent about what's happening.
At the US silence because US is known to follow double standards, and this is typically a case in point. In fact, Thai fought Bangladesh war, and in 1971, US was silent on the genocide which took place in Bangladesh, which was far more serious than the genocide in Germany of the Jews. So let's not, be surprised at the US stance and the way US deals with the issues. Well, Hindus have always been vulnerable. As I said, in 71, we fought the war, Hindu population in Bangladesh was over 20%. And today it is 8%. And during my own time, we were in Bangladesh for 3 months after the war. We knew how the Hindus are being persecuted. Now, coming to the current situation, Bangladesh has a history of coup and change of regimes, and they have never happened internally. They have always been sponsored from outside, and I have no doubt, because we need to join the dots as to how the current coup, the regime change has taken place. Definitely, the relationship which Mohammed Yunus enjoys with America, I think, stands out very, very clearly that some outside assistance discreetly has been provided to this situation today. Secondly, I am very surprised. The Bangladesh army is very, very potent force. It is feared in Bangladesh, and one order by the chief, Waqas Zaman, to the student to stop it, I can tell you, they will all go silent. So students are being used as the front face in this whole episode, and of course the army, they are behind it. The third point is, let's not put our the trust in America. No, for India it's no more an internal matter. We see the Hindus and minorities being prosecuted. It's the time we take lead. Why should we always look up to America to take lead? We are directly affected, and it's a time that we sensitize the world that what is happening in Bangladesh is a sheer genocide, and it is the violation of human rights, not acceptable. So therefore, first point is India must take the lead. Secondly, India has enough leverages to squeeze Bangladesh. This is the time. Their trade is solely dependent upon India. All the textile factories running on the Indians' raw material. And more than that, I think what India needs to do is to give a very clear, strong message that this sort of situation is not acceptable. And my last point is that countries are known how they stand up to their own diaspora, and keeping silence or trying to, have some kind of faith in America to do something, let's not be fooled about it. If India must take it, we must ensure that the world is sensitized, and the Western press has always played against India because they are paid by the inimical forces. They have the, whether you take Wall Street Journal, you take, New York Times, they have these sources of money coming in, and they will always play the game against India. So my final point is, it's no more than internal matter. India is affected. India must take the lead and use all tools of power to ensure that Hindus are protected, and there's no stopping how to go about it, because until we bring adequate pressure on Bangladesh, Western is not going to step in. They are going to be quiet. And in this whole issue, there are foreign hands which are orchestrated this coup, and that's the grand reality, Devika.
Right, absolutely. I want to bring in Adit Kothari into the conversation as well. Adit, at the same time, another big question that everybody is asking is, where exactly then are the sanctions against the current government, or even the previous government for that matter, of Bangladesh, which is allowing atrocities to be committed against the minority community? The United States of America has imposed sanctions on several other nations of the world when similar instances have taken place on other soils. But why is it that there are no sanctions for Bangladesh?
The plain simple question, the simple answer to that question, Devika, is sheer amount of hypocrisy. I mean, I'm going to take you back to February 8th and January 7th. January 7th to 2024 was when the Bangladeshi elections were held, and you have to see the tenor of the US spokesperson on the Bangladeshi elections. February 8th, the Pakistani elections were held, and there were massive questions raised about rigging. And you have to see the response from the spokesperson, the US spokesperson at that point. Vedant Patel essentially said, that's an internal matter of Pakistan. We are monitoring the situation. We feel that the elections have happened fairly fluidly and in an organized manner, where the entire world knew that the Pakistani elections were completely rigged. So the US definitely has that sense of hypocrisy, that sense of duplicity when it comes to managing their interests. So at this point of time, the interest of Sheikh Hasina being in the government in Bangladesh did not serve their purpose, which is why she is not there in the government today. That's how I'm going to put it plainly. But taking the question further towards a slightly larger point and a wider point, which is the lives of the Hindus in general, world over, whether it be the polity of Western democracies, whether it be academia, the intelligentsia, and the intelligentsia even in India, they have a mindless kind of a blind spot with regards to the genocide of Hindus. And that's not just the genocide of Hindus in Bangladesh. It's with what happens to Hindus in India, in Pakistan, even in Western democracies like Leicester, a couple of years ago. And that's where, we need to be a bit more circumspect. Somewhere or the other, our own intelligentsia, the Hindu intelligentsia, acts like the dodos. We say that dodos are extinct, but they're not. Because somewhere the Hindu intelligentsia acts only in their self-interest and in their myopic interest, where they discard the collective interests of the wider collective society, and they're pretty much concerned with what happens to their own interests, which is why you will hear them talk about the plight of the Muslims in India, you will hear them talk about the plight of the Palestinians, but never about the plight of the Pakistanis who are being gang raped by the likes of Mia Mittu in Pakistan, or with what's happening to the minorities in Bangladesh. So that is something where we, I think, need to concentrate and focus on raising our voices, Devika.
Okay, I want to bring in Rabinder Sachdev into the conversation as well. Rabinder Sachdev, interesting information comes out as far as the new interim leader of the Bangladeshi government is concerned, Mohammad Yunus, and his ties with the political family such as the Clintons of the United States of America. Amidst that, several people are today wondering as to why the US is so silent about what's happening in Bangladesh. All they have to say is that they're monitoring the situation, but there's not really any word on some of the human rights and other atrocities that are taking place on Bangladeshi soil against the minorities. Why do you think the US is deciding to stay mum?
To the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights in Geneva 2 days ago, asking them to look into this and to take this matter to the UN Security Council. See one thing, the UN cannot take up an issue, does not typically on its own. Okay, the Secretary General may bring it to the Security Council, but typically some country brings it to the UN. Now, I don't think India would like to go to the UN and say that, take up the matter of Bangladesh genocide happening. I'm not very sure, because that will open us tomorrow to Bangladesh going to the UN talking about India, Pakistan going to UN about India. So India will not. Which other country is there which will take it up? None, perhaps. The best avenue which I found was through the UN High Commissioner of Human Rights. Okay, they can take up the matter and they can do something on their own, as well as they can take it to the UN. Right. So we've written to them. Now there's a question, and a very practical question on as to what's done. I'm not talking in a discussion or an analysis. I'm talking about action steps. Now I have a colleague who lives right across their office in Geneva. She can walk across and meet up and talk to their chief spokesperson or get an appointment with the office of the High Commissioner. But the point she is telling me, and therefore I request, and I was listening to Monu Nalapat's statement, and I've written to Rishabh also, what she is telling me is that, the UN, these High Commission Human Rights, they're very, wary of taking up issues because they've had scandals in the past. They've taken up some issues and which have come back to haunt them. So what she is suggesting is that video footages. If we have, so she's asked me today, if we have video footages, send them to me, I'll go talk to them and push it there. So therefore, my one request to Professor Nalapat on this is that offline, sir, later on, if we can please connect, and if I could get some footages which I can pass on to her, then she can follow up on that question out there. So that's something on the ground as such that I'm talking from what I thought one could, add 1 cent to whatever is happening other than the analysis part of it. Now, secondly, with respect to the US, yes, they're staying mum, whatsoever. So, there are, wheels within wheels and conspiracies within what races we do not know. The issue of the St. Martin Island and all. I actually am a little skeptical on that. The big picture I feel a little skeptical on that is that can America be foolish enough, if it has, that it did not get the St. Martin Island, it was miffed with Sheikh Hasina, on other counts also, of course, democracy, human rights, those were issues they were raising. Okay, they had sanctioned some of her senior paramilitary officials, also denied them visas and all. Okay, fair enough, they were unhappy with Sheikh Hasina, they wanted some change, maybe they wanted something else, and maybe they wanted the St. Martin Island also as a base to counter China, right? But where I fail to see the last bit of the logic is that, would they go ahead and get Sheikh Hasina ousted when they would know, generally, that the next government, if Hasina goes, would be a BNP/Jamaat one. Jamaat would be more radical, Islamic, etc. BNP similar, anti-India and pro-China. So would it in a way spite its own nose in order to, that it did not get Martin and Hasina was being tough about it, that they would depose this Prime Minister? So it would be an oxymoron. It will defeat their logic. If we look at logic, that they wanted the Martin Island in order to counter China. Now, they've not got the Martin Island, but what they've ended up is doing, pushing entire Bangladesh into the orbit of China. So that's one last bit of logic that I find I'm trying to grapple through. Of course, people who know more, and I would love to, know more, learn more, but that's where I'm coming on the particular St. Martin issue. But yes, we know America goes around the world, toppling leaders, killing leaders, all kind of deep conspiracies and all, or realities they do. But with regards to the St. Martin Island, that's my little question at the last end of the logic.
Okay, all right. I want to bring back Professor Madhav Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, in your assessment then, what really do you feel will be the situation in Bangladesh in the coming days? Because we've now seen a Mohammad Yunus making some effort to visit temples in Bangladesh. He's held a meeting with certain leaders of the Hindu community. But why is it that they've taken so long to respond to what's happening on the ground, rather than making appeals from the very first day? Was there some sort of messaging that one was also trying to send out to the minority community through their silence?
Frankly, what has been done by Mohammad Yunus is merely symbolic. It's merely symbolic because we were serious. He would write to the Human Rights Commissioner in the UN. He would be in touch with United States. He's very close to the United States. He knows everybody there. He could be in touch with his good friends, the Clintons, and tell about this and say, please do something. Don't be like Nixon. Don't be like Kissinger. He's done none of these things. Instead, he's made a symbolic gesture. You make it's like a symbolic gesture, like, for example, walking in the street and, saying candles and saying, peace should come. It's completely symbolic. It's ridiculous. It doesn't save anybody. You had multiple such marches in Bengal, and the violence in Bengal, our Bengal, is continuing unabated. So quite frankly, Devika, it's another bit of hypocrisy. And if Mohammed Yunus is sincere, he would take up the matter officially as the chief advisor, and he would recommend to the military chief, please take action. Please ensure that extremists stop this kind of thing. He has done no such thing, which basically gives rise to the suspicion, is this Nobel laureate complicit in a visible genocide? Videos and all that, that's right. There needs to be videos built up. In fact, I'm glad, many of them we should collect them and send them to Robinder as well, including some of our shows, and the video footage that we have there, and to others. But I can only say what Mohammed Yunus has done, visiting temples, meeting Hindus, is that such a fantastic, historic, epoch-making state in a country where Hindus basically were once a much larger component of the population. And let's be honest, the bulk of the soldiers who liberated Bangladesh were, of course, Sikhs and Hindus. Hindus are very much there.
Right.
Is this your paying back the Hindus for the fact that they liberated Bangladesh by delivering them back to the fires of hell, which means the Jamaat, the BNP, and the extremists?
Right. Absolutely. I thank all of our panelists for joining us on this broadcast. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. But before we slip into a very short break, my colleague Pia has a special message for you. Listen in.
India is celebrating its Independence Day on August 15th, and as a tribute to our great nation, MDH has released this anthem called Jai Bharat. Let's listen in.
जय भारत जय भारत जय भारत जय जय भारत। आसमान पे हम छाएंगे, जो करना है कर जाएंगे, रोक सको तो रोक के देखो, अब ना रोके जाएंगे। जय भारत जय भारत जय भारत जय जय भारत। सोने की चिड़िया था अपना भारत हमको ज्ञात है, फिर ऐसे ही भारत का निर्माण करो तो बात है। देश बड़ा है हर मजहब से, युवा शक्ति का नारा है, विकसित भारत हो अपना अब ये संकल्प हमारा है। अपने हर संकल्प को हमको सिद्धि तक ले जाना है, इस दुनिया में भारत की सभ्यता का परचम लहराना है।
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.